Good morning, world. I am Judy, your web-based therapist, making therapy accessible and convenient for our clients in Florida and New York, and of course, sharing information worldwide. Today, I want to talk about 5 things that you need or 5 things you should be doing to build a voting block. I know I've talked a lot about being a voting block and voting blocks over the last few weeks because to me, in a democracy, a voting block is one of the most important tools, it's one of the most powerful tools that you can have because with a voting block, you can change things. You can change elections. You can change situations. And when you have the power to change an election, you also have the power to change a community. You have the power to make anytime you have the power to make changes in a democracy, you also have the power to make changes where it matters to you and your community. But before we get into that, I want to take a quick moment and say, if you are subscribed, thank you so very much for being a subscriber. And if you are not yet subscribed, please be sure to click the link below so that you can and subscribe. And of course, make sure you click the bell so that you are notified when I post new videos, which I am doing a little bit more regularly now. And of course, if you would like to buy 1 or 3 of my books, there's a link below that will take you to the website that will show you, that gives you all the options of places that you can get 3 or 1 or 3 of my books. Okay, so let's talk about it. First thing you need to do, you need to know the number of voters, the number of people registered to vote, as well as the number of eligible potential voters. Yes, those are 3 very different things. When people look at a precinct, when people look at an area, they look at, oh, this is how many people votes in that area. That's what they're looking at. Because if in this area 30 people vote, that means that in this area, only 30 people have the power to impact my election. This means that, hey, if I ignore them, all I have to do is make sure that those areas where I pay attention to, I get the 30 people, I get a boost to cover the 30 people who are going to vote in that area. But your actual people who are registered to vote they are kind of like a sleeping dragon. They're there. They're available. They just have not been engaged. So you need to know who those people are because those people are already registered. They're already in the system. They're already ready to go. But you need to figure out how to get them to go. And of course, your cash cow really is your eligible potential voters. A lot of times in our communities, we have those eligible potential voters. Those are your adults who are able and eligible to vote, but for whatever reason are not registered and are not voting. Or maybe they registered way back when somewhere, but they're not registered in your area. They're not registered where they live. Those are eligible voters that could be turned into actual voters, but you have to figure out how to take them from those people sitting on the sideline to people actually inside the game, playing on the field, playing the game. 2, know your community's pain points. People will vote against a lot of things. People will vote for some things. You need to know where they're hurting. If you want people to vote, you have to figure out what it is that those people want, because you have to figure out how that voting is going to help them. You have to figure out a way to make sure that they are going to get what it is that they want. They are going to get a benefit from voting. They're going to get change. If they want change in whatever way, you need to figure out how to get those changes to them, how to help them see the value of voting. So you need to know what their pain point is so that you can help them figure out how to address it. Help your decision makers, help your community, help your local government, whoever needs to address it so that you can start getting those pain points addressed, so that you can getting those pain points to the forefront. Because if you're not addressing their pain points, if their pain points are not going to be addressed, and when I say pain points, what I mean is what matters to them. Where are they hurting? What do they need? What do they want? What are they asking for? What benefits do they need that they're not getting? What benefits are they asking for that they're not getting? What is affecting them negatively that they want to make stop? That's always a big one. People will vote to make something stop. So what exactly is happening in their community that you want to help them change? What is happening in their community that you want to stop? So figure out what their pain point is so that you can start working in helping them figure out how to address it at the ballot box. 3, know their barriers. I talked about people who are registered to vote, as well as potential eligible voters. Those two groups often don't vote for a reason. We don't know what that reason is. We don't know what caused them not to vote, what's impacting them, what's motivating them to, or what's keeping them from voting. That's a better word. You don't know what's keeping them from voting. You need to figure out what the barriers in that community are. For example, you could have a large community of potential voters who don't understand, who don't know, who have not had access to voter registration. So if that is a barrier, knowing that will help you address it. Because if you know that they're not registered because they haven't had access to a registration, or maybe because registration is being done online and they don't have computers, maybe because they didn't have the stamp to mail a voter registration. Once you start identifying the barriers, then you can start taking the right measures to fix them. Another barrier that many people often face is access to polling places. Sometimes people don't vote because they don't have time. People don't vote because, hey, I have to be at work from 7 to 7 and the election is from 7 to 7. Or I don't know how to get there, or I don't have I don't have a ride to get there. There are so many different potential barriers that keep people from getting to the polls on election day. If you truly want to create a voting bloc, you have to figure out what the barriers in that area for that voting bloc. You have to figure out what the barriers are so that you can start figuring out how to remove those barriers. For example, if it's transportation, maybe a lot of times I see people, especially candidates in some groups, they'll organize vans to go take people to vote. They will organize rides for people. If the people don't have time, getting them interested in or helping them figure out how to do a vote by mail. All those things are ways of removing barriers. And by removing barriers, you can take a potential eligible voter to a voter, or a person who is registered to, you can turn a person who is registered to vote into an actual voter. 4, get everyone election ready. Especially in our communities, especially in the communities where there are a lot of people living in apartments. People are registered in one place, but they don't live there. People registered way back in 1993, but have since moved 10 times, but they've never changed their registration and therefore no longer have access to their assigned polling place. Make sure that you get your voting bloc election ready. This means that helping people update their voter registration if they need to update their voter registration. This means that if you have people who are not registered to vote, making sure that they are registered by whatever the registration deadline is in their community, making sure that whatever it is that they need to do, if you're in an area where there's an ID requirement and people don't have ID, figure out how to get them the ID that they need, how to help them get an ID so that, hey, at the end of the day, they can be election ready. Being election ready means that the person is registered and has the resources and has everything they need in order to be able to cast a vote on election day. So that means being registered to vote, having access to ID, having a ride. If they need to update their registration so that they're not registered to vote in their current community, make sure that is done. And if they need, sometimes the person, if it's a time issue that they have, hey, making sure that they understand how to do the vote by mail, making sure that whatever it is that has kept someone from voting has been taken care of so that nothing is keeping that person from voting anymore. 5, follow up to remind people to vote. Yes. Once you start engaging people and talking to them and telling them about the importance of voting, hey, you should vote because, hey, we have an election coming up. Once you start engaging them, in the process. It's important to start to follow up with them when the election comes. More often than not, building a voting block is not something that you're going to do today or next week. It's something that takes time. It's something that you do over time. It's something that you do over a period of months or maybe even years. So once you start engaging those people, you get them to buy in. It's important that you're following up with them when election comes. So that means that when we're having this primary that's coming up, that you're reaching out to these people to make sure that, hey, the election's coming up. Are you ready? Hey, did you we have an election coming up in a month. Did you request your vote by mail ballot? Or maybe the ballot was already requested. Did you receive your vote by mail ballot? Have you returned your vote? Making sure that we are following up with them and encouraging them to actually engage, because it doesn't matter how well you did getting them election ready. Unless they actually vote, none of that counts. Making sure that you're following up with them to remind them that, hey, election is on Tuesday. Hey, election is from 7 to 7. Hey, your vote by mail ballot should have come. Did you receive it? Do you need to get all those things? That follow-up is important, especially when you're dealing with people who normally are not voters, for whom these things were not exactly the most important things, for whom these things were not the top priority. They may forget. They may not be paying attention and miss certain things. So following up with them is how you start getting them engaged. And of course, once they become engaged, once they really start to get it, yeah, they may be a lot more active, and you may need to do a lot less as far as keeping them engaged and reminding them. But at least at the beginning, it's important to do that. Okay, so let's do the quick recap. 1, it's important to know the number of voters, the number of people registered to vote, as well as the number of potential eligible voters. Because most people are looking at who votes in the community, but your goal is, who else can I get to vote in this community? And that's where your people who are registered to vote, as well as your potential eligible voters, will come in handy. 2, know your community's pain points. If you want people to start engaging with you in this journey, you need to figure out, okay, what issues do they have? Can I help them resolve? 3, know the barriers. Many people don't vote for a very specific reason. Figure out what that reason is for each individual person, for each individual area, for each individual community, and start addressing and removing those barriers. 4, get everyone election ready. It doesn't matter how many potential eligible voters you have. If they're not election ready, they cannot be part of your voting block. So make sure that if you want to have a voting block, everyone on your voting block is election ready, registered to vote, have the right ID, know where they need to go, have all the information, have all the tools and resources that they need so that on election day they can cast a vote. And finally, follow up to remind people to vote. Especially if people who are not normally voters, people who don't vote regularly, they may forget. They may not be paying attention. But if it is truly something we want to do, we want to engage and get people to become active voters, we may need to start reminding them when the time comes. We may need to start making those reminder phone calls, sending those reminder mailers to make sure that people are aware and are following through. As always, if you or someone you know happens to be going through something that's more than you can handle, please remember that even when in times like this, when things are not exactly as normal as they could be, there are professionals like myself who are available, able, and willing, and are even providing remote services to assist with anything you may have going on. So please figure out who those people are in your community so that if you need the help, you can reach out and get the help that you need. And that is all we have for today. Good morning, world. Have an awesome day.